Some moments arrive quietly. They don't shout or demand attention. They simply change everything. It was one of those evenings that felt ordinary in every way, the kind people forget without trying, until something small makes it unforgettable. She had just finished clearing the table when the house settled into silence. Not the heavy kind, the peaceful kind that comes after a long day. The lights were low, rain tapped gently against the windows. The world outside felt far away. Her nephew sat on the living room floor, knees pulled to his chest. A book lay open in front of him, unread. His eyes followed the shadows on the wall. She noticed him from the kitchen doorway. He had been quieter than usual all evening, too quiet for a boy his age. She dried her hands slowly and walked toward him. Her steps were soft, almost careful, as if she didn't want to startle whatever thoughts held him captive. He looked up when she sat beside him. His smile appeared late, like it had to work its way through something heavy. She felt a familiar tug in her chest. Life had not been gentle with him. Not lately. Not since the changes no one liked to name out loud. She reached for the remote and lowered the volume on the television. The room grew still, the kind of stillness that invites truth. "Everything okay?" she asked. Her voice stayed light, but her heart leaned forward. He nodded too quickly, then shook his head, then nodded again. That was when she knew.
A child could hide many things, but not confusion. She waited, did not rush him. Some questions need space before they can breathe. He traced a line on the carpet with his finger, back and forth, back and forth. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. Her body reacted before her mind did, a small tightening, a quiet readiness. "Of course," she replied. Always, of course. That was her rule with him. He hesitated, bit his lip, then looked straight at her. Why do grown-ups stop telling the truth when it hurts? The question landed gently, and yet it knocked the air from her lungs. She did not answer right away. Her mouth opened, closed again. The rain outside grew louder, or maybe she was just listening harder. He rushed to fill the silence. "I mean, they say things are fine, but they don't feel fine." She swallowed, carefully, slowly. Adults were supposed to have answers. That was the deal. That was the promise. But this question did not come from a place of curiosity. It came from a place of knowing, and that made it harder. She leaned back against the couch, stared at the ceiling for a moment, bought herself time. "Sometimes," she began, choosing each word like glass, "people think they're protecting others by staying quiet." He frowned. "That doesn't feel like protection," he said. "It feels lonely." Her chest tightened again, this time sharper, this time deeper. He was not wrong, and that scared her more than if he had been. She thought of all the half-truths spoken in calm voices, all the smiles used like shields, all the silence mistaken for strength. She looked at him, really looked. He was still young, but not untouched, not unaware. "You're right," she said softly. "It can feel lonely." He nodded, relieved, as if permission had just been granted. They sat together in that honesty, neither trying to fix it, just acknowledging it existed. She placed a hand on his shoulder. He leaned into it without thinking, like it was the safest place he knew. Moments like this mattered. She knew that. They shaped the way children learn to trust the world. And yet, she felt unprepared, because she sensed this was not the real question. This was only the doorway. Something bigger waited on the other side. He took a deep breath. the kind people take before stepping off an edge. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. He turned to her again, his eyes darker now, more serious. "Auntie," he said quietly, "do you ever wish you had told the truth sooner, even if it changed everything?" Her heart skipped. Once, then again. Because now she understood. This question wasn't about grown-ups. It was about her. And whatever answer she gave next would matter more than he knew. Some questions don't ask for answers. They ask for honesty. I felt it immediately. That quiet shift in the room. The moment when something unseen steps closer. She did not look away from him. Not this time. She had learned that avoiding a child's eyes only made the distance grow. "I think about that sometimes," she said carefully. Not yes, not no. He waited. Children are better at patience when they sense truth nearby. He trusted the pause. The rain softened outside, as if even it was listening. She felt the weight of memories rise. Not sharply, slowly. "When I was younger," she continued, "I believed telling the truth would break people." He tilted his head. "Did it?" he asked. She smiled faintly. Not because it was funny. Because it was familiar. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But hiding it broke me." The words surprised her as they left her mouth. They sounded braver spoken aloud. More real. He shifted closer. Their shoulders touched. A small connection, but steady. "My dad says adults lie because they're scared," he said. "Is that true?" She exhaled. Long, slow. "Yes," she said. "Often that's true." She thought of promises wrapped in good intentions, of conversations postponed until someday, of love expressed through silence instead of courage. She had not planned to share any of that tonight. But nights like this did not ask permission. "What made you scared?" he asked. There it was. The real question at last. She considered telling him something easy, something vague, something safe. But his eyes stayed steady. Open, ready. "I was afraid of being the reason someone cried," she said. "Or left. Or saw me differently." He thought about that. Really thought. "But they saw you differently anyway," he said. It wasn't a question. It was an observation. She laughed softly, a sound edged with sadness. "Yes," she replied. "They did." She remembered the moment she chose silence over truth. How it felt like control at first. How it slowly turned into regret. She had believed she was protecting someone she loved, but time had a way of revealing the cost. It always did. Her nephew hugged his knees again. "I don't like when people pretend," he said. "It makes me feel like I'm not smart enough to handle the truth." That one struck deeper, because it echoed something she had once felt herself. "You are smart enough," she said immediately, "and strong enough." He smiled at that, just a little, as if storing it away for later. They sat quietly for a moment. The clock ticked softly on the wall. Each second felt heavier than the last. "Auntie," he said after a while, "did telling the truth ever fix things?" She hesitated. Not because she didn't know, because the answer mattered. "Not always," she said honestly, "but it always let me breathe again." He nodded slowly, like someone learning a new rule of the world, one no one had explained before. He glanced toward the hallway, toward the closed bedroom door at the end. She followed his gaze.
Something unspoken lived there. Something recent. Something raw. Is that why things are weird right now? He asked quietly.
Her heart clenched, because she knew what he meant. Things are different, she said, but different doesn't mean broken. He considered that, then asked the question she had hoped would not come. Is it my fault when adults don't say things? Her breath caught. That was the danger of silence. Children filled it with blame. She turned fully toward him, placed both hands gently on his arms, made sure she felt her focus. No, she said firmly. Never. That is not your burden. His eyes softened, moist but not falling. Relief often came like that. I just wanted to know, he whispered, if being honest is worth it. She looked at him, at the boy learning how the world worked, at the future shaping itself in his questions. Yes, she said, it is. He leaned into her side again, comforted, but not finished, because curiosity had taken hold, and courage followed close behind. What truth did you wait too long to say? He asked. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, her past closer than ever. She closed her eyes for a brief second, long enough to choose. Because once spoken, truth did not return quietly. It changed the shape of everything. And she sensed that whatever she shared next would not only answer his question, but open a door she had kept closed for years. Some truths wait patiently. They don't fade. They gather weight. She opened her eyes and looked at him again. Really looked. As if memorizing the moment before stepping forward. There was someone I loved very much, she began. Her voice stayed calm, but her hands trembled slightly. Not romantic, not dramatic, just honest. He needed to hear something important from me, she continued, and I waited too long to say it. Her nephew stayed silent. No interruptions, no rush. I thought time would soften the moment, she said, but time only made the silence louder. She remembered the sound of that silence, how it followed her everywhere, even into rooms filled with people. By the time I spoke, she added, the moment had already passed. He frowned. Did he stop caring? He asked. She shook her head gently. No, he just stopped waiting. That truth sat between them, heavy, unavoidable. Children understood more than adults gave them credit for, especially when pain was involved. Was it because you were scared? He asked. Yes, she replied, because I didn't want to be the one who changed things. He considered that. But not saying it changed things too, he said. She smiled sadly. That's the part no one tells you. The room felt warmer now, or maybe she was finally letting something go. She leaned back against the couch, let her head rest for a moment, allowed herself to remember. There's a strange kind of regret, she said, that comes from knowing you could have been braver. He traced the seam of the cushion with his finger. Thinking, learning. Do you still think about it? He asked. Yes, she said without hesitation. Not every day, but often enough. Does it hurt? He whispered. Not the way it used to, she replied, but it taught me something. He looked up, eyes searching. What? That silence doesn't keep love safe, she said. It only keeps it hidden. That seemed to land. He straightened slightly, as if a small piece of courage had just clicked into place. What would you do differently now? He asked. She didn't have to think long. I would speak sooner, she said, even if my voice shook. He smiled, a real one this time, like he approved. They sat quietly again. The rain had stopped. The house felt calmer. Then he spoke, softly. "Is that why you listen to me so much?" She turned toward him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You always let me finish," he said. "You don't tell me to be quiet when I'm sad." Her throat tightened because he had noticed. "Yes," she said gently. "That's part of it." He nodded, satisfied, then glanced toward the hallway again. That door. Still closed. "Are you waiting to say something now?" he asked. Her heart skipped, because children sensed unfinished things like drafts in the air. She hesitated, just for a moment. "There are conversations I haven't had yet," she admitted. "With who?" he asked. She followed his gaze. The closed door felt closer than before. "With someone I care about," she said. He thought about that, then asked the question that would stay with her long after tonight. "Are you going to wait again?" She looked at him, at the hope in his eyes, at the lesson forming between them. "I don't want to," she said truthfully. He nodded once, firm, certain. "Then don't," he said simply. Sometimes wisdom arrived quietly, through small voices, through simple words. She laughed softly, a sound filled with gratitude. "You know," she said, "you ask very important questions." He shrugged. "I just don't want people to be sad later." That hit her harder than anything else, because regret was sadness delayed. She wrapped an arm around him, held him close, let the moment settle. But her mind was already moving forward, toward that closed door, toward the truth waiting behind it. Because now she understood, this night wasn't about teaching him something. It was about being taught. And she knew that before the night ended, she would have to choose between comfort and courage. One last time. Some decisions don't announce themselves. They sit quietly, waiting to be chosen. She tucked her nephew in a little later than usual, pulled the blanket up to his shoulders, smoothed his hair the way she always did. He was already drifting, but his eyes opened once more, just enough. "Promise me something?" he murmured. "Yes," she said instantly, without knowing what it would be, without hesitation. "Don't wait," he whispered. She smiled, soft, certain. "I promise," she said. He fell asleep moments later, peaceful, unaware of how much he had already changed. She stood in the doorway for a while, listening to his breathing, letting the courage settle into her bones. Then she turned toward the hallway, toward that closed door, toward the conversation she had postponed for too long. Her steps were slow, not because she doubted the choice, but because she respected its weight. She paused with her hand on the doorframe, took a breath, then knocked. A voice answered from inside, tired, guarded. "Yes?" She opened the door gently, stepped inside. The room felt different at night. The lamp cast a warm glow. Shadows softened the edges of everything, including the distance between them. They looked up, surprised but not startled, as if they had been expecting this moment. "Can we talk?" she asked. There it was, simple, brave. They nodded, set the book aside, waited. She sat on the chair across from the bed, hands folded in her lap, heart steady even as it raced. "I've been quiet," she said, "not because I didn't care, but because I was afraid." They listened, didn't interrupt. That alone felt like a gift. "I thought silence would keep things calm," she continued, "but it only made things heavier." She looked up, met their eyes, did not look away. "I should have spoken sooner," she said, "and I'm sorry." The room stayed quiet, not cold, just real. After a moment they spoke. Their voice was softer than she expected. Not angry, I didn't need perfect words, they said. I just needed honesty. That stung. Because it was true. She nodded. Let the truth land. Let it stay. I don't have everything figured out, she admitted. But I want to try. Together. They studied her face, as if checking for cracks, as if looking for the old hesitation. Then something shifted. A small release, a breath finally let go. I was waiting, they said quietly. Not forever. Just long enough. Tears pressed behind her eyes, not falling. Just present. I won't wait again, she said. Her voice steady. Certain. They reached for her hand. The gesture was simple, but it felt like forgiveness. They talked for a long time after that, not fixing everything, just naming it. Something's hurt. Something's healed. Some things remained unfinished. But the silence was gone, and that mattered more than perfection ever could. Later, when the house had settled again, she returned to the living room, sat where her nephew had been earlier. The rain had stopped completely. The air felt lighter, as if the house itself had exhaled. She thought about the question he had asked, about truth, about waiting. She understood now. The question hadn't left her speechless. It had given her a voice. And tomorrow, when her nephew woke up, she would have something important to tell him. Not a lesson, not advice, but proof. Some nights don't end when the lights go out. They carry forward, into who we become. Morning arrived softly, pale light through the curtains, the house waking one sound at a time. She stood at the stove, stirring slowly. The smell of breakfast filled the kitchen, comforting, familiar. Footsteps padded down the hallway, sleepy, uneven. Her nephew appeared in the doorway. His hair was a mess, his eyes still heavy, but his smile came easily. Tell the truth. She set the spoon down, turned toward him fully, gave him her attention. You were right last night, she said, about not waiting. His eyes widened just a little. Did you do it? He asked. Yes, she said. I talked. And? He pressed. She smiled. Not big, but real. It wasn't easy, she said, but it was worth it. He considered that, then grinned. Proud. I knew it, he said, as if he had expected nothing less. They ate together quietly, the kind of quiet that feels safe, the kind built on honesty. After a while, he looked up again. So, he said, does that mean asking hard questions is okay? She met his gaze. Every time. Always. It means they matter, she said, even when they're scary. He nodded, satisfied. Later, as the day unfolded, she watched him move through the house, lighter than before, less guarded. She realized something then. Children didn't need adults to be perfect. They needed them to be brave. That night, as she tucked him in again, he paused before closing his eyes. Thank you, he said. For what? She asked. For answering, he replied simply. Her throat tightened, but she smiled. Thank you, she said back, for asking. He drifted off quickly, peaceful, unburdened. She stayed a moment longer, listening, remembering. One question, one evening, one choice. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it comes through quiet courage. And sometimes the smallest voices ask the questions that finally teach us how to speak. The night his question left her speechless became the morning she found her voice.